I never thought I'd be that guy, the one who finds out his wife's been screwing around behind his back. Lisa and I had been together for 7 years. We got married pretty young, right after college, and honestly I thought we had something real. She was sharp, funny, a little bitchy at times, but I loved her for it. Or at least I did, until everything started falling apart after the flood last month. That flood was a nightmare. Our house got hit pretty bad, and we had to bring in inspectors to evaluate the damage, mostly to get insurance claims processed. The inspector was a guy named Mark, pretty typical looking, about mid-40s with a decent face, a little too slick for my taste, but professionals like him tend to be that way. Lisa was acting weird during that whole process, more distant than usual, snapping at me over small things, which I blamed on the stress of the flooding and dealing with the insurance mess. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. One evening, I come home from work early because I wasn't feeling well. I was planning to surprise Lisa, maybe cook dinner or just relax, but when I pull up in the driveway, I notice her car isn't where she usually parks. Instead, there's this really nice, newer SUV I don't recognize. My stomach tightens, but I brush it off, thinking she might have gone out with her friends or something. I walk inside and the house is dead silent. No TV, no signs of her usual chaos of work calls or her talking to her sister. Just silence. I head to the living room and that's when I see it. The security footage from our home cameras, something I'd set up a while ago just in case. I never thought I'd be reviewing footage like this, but I've got nothing to lose now. I sit down and start scrolling through the clips from earlier that afternoon, and what I see hits me like a punch in the stomach. There she is, Lisa, in our living room talking to Mark. It's not just a quick chat either, they're close, way too close. I watch her lean into him, her hand brushing his arm, then her face inches from his. They're laughing, joking, and then, suddenly, they're kissing. Not just a quick peck, but full on. Making out deep and aggressive. I see her pull him toward the hallway and my mind just explodes. How could she do this? With him, right after the flood, right after she was supposed to be upset about losing our home. It's like she's been planning this all along. I can't believe I missed all the signs. The late nights, her changing schedule, her dismissiveness. She told me she was working late, but I knew she was lying. I just never expected her to be cheating on me with a guy like Mark, who she barely knew before all this. I replay the footage a couple of times, trying to process it. I feel betrayed, humiliated, and honestly furious. I wanted to confront her right then, but I needed to think. I had to figure out what to do with this information, how to react, how to even stay sane after seeing her betray me like this. I stayed up all night, watching those clips, trying to come up with a plan. I couldn't sleep, my mind racing with questions. Why? How long? Was I blind? Did she ever love me? The worst part is knowing I'd trusted her implicitly in. Now I can't even look at her the same way anymore. I know I should be furious, I should be calling her out, but all I could do was sit there, feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. This was the moment I realized everything I thought I knew about her was a lie, and I needed to decide what kind of man I was going to be in the aftermath of this betrayal. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My head was pounding, and my stomach was in knots. I hadn't slept a wink, replaying everything I saw on that footage. It was like a punch to the gut every time I thought about her kissing him, her touch, her laugh, things I thought I knew, things I thought she was better than, but she'd been lying right to my face all along. It was surreal. I remember sitting there in the dark, trying to figure out what to do next. My mind kept bouncing between anger, sadness, and a strange numbness. I wanted to confront her immediately, but I also knew I needed a plan. I couldn't just blow up like some emotional wreck. That wouldn't serve me. I had to be smart, calculated. The first thing I did was look through more footage, trying to get a clearer idea of when they first started sneaking around. Turns out, she'd been acting weird for a few weeks, canceling plans, acting distant, snapping at me over nothing. All of it was a cover, and now I see it was all to hide her affair. I decided I'd wait till she came home, then confront her. I didn't want her to see me broken or angry, at least not right away. I wanted her to realize I knew everything, that I had proof. So I stayed quiet, waiting for her to come back from whatever she was doing. When she finally walked in that evening, she tried to act normal, brushing past me with her usual bitchy attitude. But I could see the flicker of guilt behind her eyes. She knew I knew. I just looked at her and said, "We need to talk." She blinked, tried to brush it off like I was crazy. "What are you talking about? I haven't done anything," she spat, but I kept my cool. "Cut the bullshit, Lisa. I saw the footage. I saw you kissing Mark. You've been lying to me for weeks. How long has this been going on?" Her face froze for a second, then she rolled her eyes. "You're overreacting. It's not a big deal, just a stupid fling. It doesn't mean anything," she said, trying to laugh it off, but her voice cracked. I could tell she was trying to convince herself more than me. I felt my blood boiling. How could she lie so easily? How could she act like this was nothing? I told her I wasn't buying her bullshit, that I'd seen enough and that I wanted the truth. She started crying, which was a new twist, not the remorseful kind, but the poor me kind. "You don't understand, Jason. It's complicated. He's just a guy and I was lonely. You're never home, always working. We just, connected. It's not like I planned it, it just happened." She sniffled, trying to sound innocent, but I didn't buy it. I knew her too well. She was a master at lying, and that was the worst part. Knowing she could still lie straight, too. My face, even now, I felt a mix of anger and heartbreak. I wanted to scream, to shake her, but I held back. I asked her how long it had been going on, and she hesitated. "A few weeks, maybe a month, but it's over now. I swear," she said, trying to look remorseful, but I saw right through her. She was still lying. She always lied. I could tell she wasn't done, that she'd been hiding things from me for longer than I thought. That realization made me feel even more betrayed. How many lies had I missed? How long had I been blind? I told her I needed some space, that I couldn't be around her right now. I didn't even know what I wanted to say yet, but I knew I couldn't stay in the same house with her. I packed a bag and left. I didn't tell her I was going to stay with a friend, but I knew I had to get out of there. I needed to breathe, to process everything. As I drove away, my mind kept replaying those images from the footage. Her kissing him, her touching him, her lying to me about everything. It was like a sick, twisted nightmare. I'd trusted her, loved her, and she'd been screwing someone else while acting like everything was fine. The pain was unlike anything I'd ever felt before. I was angry at her, furious at myself for not seeing it sooner, and deeply heartbroken because I still loved her. Deep down, I think I did. But that love was turning into something bitter, something I didn't recognize. And I knew deep inside I had to figure out whether I could even forgive her, or if I'd ever be able to trust her again. After I left, I couldn't stop thinking about everything that had happened. I kept replaying the footage, the lies she told, the way her face looked when she cried. It was like my world had been flipped upside down. I stayed with my buddy Mike for a few days, trying to clear my head, but the anger kept bubbling beneath the surface. I knew I had to do something, something calculated. I couldn't just be another guy betrayed and defeated. The first thing I did was dig into her phone. I wasn't planning to snoop, but I just needed to see if she'd slip up. I had to know if she was still lying or if she'd been honest about everything. So I grabbed her phone while she was out running errands. Her messages were full of stupid little lies, but I caught something that made my blood run cold, a text from Mark sent just yesterday. It read, "Can't wait to see you tonight. Love you." I stared at the screen, stunned. They were still talking, still planning to meet up. That was the moment I decided I was going to take control. I knew I couldn't trust her anymore, but I also knew I had to do something that would make her regret ever crossing me. I started planning my revenge, not just to hurt her, but to make her understand what she'd lost. I didn't want some petty game. I wanted her to feel the same devastation I was feeling, maybe even worse. I remembered Mark's work details from the home inspection reports. I looked him up, found out where he worked, and came up with a plan. I figured I'd make it look like I knew everything, but I wasn't going to confront her right away. I wanted her to panic, to see her unravel. I decided to send a little message to Mark, pretending I was upset about the whole thing but not revealing too much. I told him I knew about the affair, that I had proof. I didn't say much, just enough to make him sweat. Then I sat back and waited. I wanted her to come home, find out I knew about her little secret, and see her reaction. I didn't want to just blow up and scream at her. I wanted her to feel the weight of everything she'd done. That night she came home, acting nervous and defensive. When I confronted her again, she tried to deny it, but I didn't give her that. I showed her my phone, the message from Mark, the photos I'd taken from the security footage. That's when her face lost all its color. She started spinning these lies, saying Mark was just a contractor, that it was innocent, that it meant nothing. She told me I was overreacting, that I was paranoid and jealous, but I wasn't buying any of it. Not anymore. I told her I knew she'd been lying about everything, that she'd been cheating on me for weeks and that I wasn't going to stand for it. I could see the shock in her eyes the moment she realized I outsmarted her. Her reaction was classic. She started crying again, but this time there was a different edge to it. Not remorse, but desperation. She begged me to forgive her, said it was a mistake, that she never meant for it to go this far. She claimed she was lonely, that I didn't pay enough attention to her, that Mark was just some stupid mistake. I looked at her, feeling a strange mix of anger and sadness. How could she sit there and lie to my face again after everything I'd seen, after everything she'd done? I told her that I needed some time to think, that I couldn't do this anymore. I packed a bag that night and left again, this time with a plan. I decided I'd give her a week to come clean, to confess properly, or I'd do it myself. I wanted her to feel the fear of losing everything, because honestly, she deserved that much. I wasn't going to sit around waiting for her to decide whether she cared enough to stop lying. I'd already lost so much trust, and part of me wondered if I could ever get it back. But I knew one thing for sure: I wasn't going to act like some sucker anymore. I was going to be in control now, even if it meant destroying her in the process. Over the next few days, my mind was a constant battle. Every time I thought I was getting a grip, some new detail from her lies or her texts would blow my calm apart. I kept replaying everything: her sneaky little lies, the way she'd always act like she was busy but was really with him. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. Not just because she cheated, but because she lied so effortlessly, so convincingly, even after I had the proof right in front of her face. I decided I needed a different approach. I didn't want her to think I was just some fool who'd accept it. I wanted her to see that I was serious, that I was willing to do whatever it took to make her regret this. So I started planning my revenge carefully. I reached out to Mark, pretending I was really upset, threatening to get a lawyer if he didn't come clean. I played the part of the scorned husband well enough. And I made sure I kept a record of everything: screenshots, texts, the whole 9 yards. Meanwhile, Lisa was completely losing it. She was calling me nonstop, trying to deny everything again, crying crocodile tears, begging me to forgive her. She kept saying she didn't want to lose me, but I could see she was just trying to save her ass. She kept lying, trying to spin it as some stupid mistake, that she was sorry but just didn't want to be alone. The worst part, I almost believed her at some point. Almost. But I couldn't forget what I'd seen, and I knew she'd be lying right to my face if I gave her the chance. One night I decided I'd go all in. I set up a meeting with Mark, not to confront him directly, but to get him to admit everything. I wanted him to slip up. I told him I'd been watching, that I knew what he'd been doing, and that I had proof. I sent him a message pretending to be furious, warning him that I'd take legal action if he didn't come clean. And I knew that was going to push him to break under pressure. I wanted him to feel the heat just like I was feeling. The next day, Mark called me, on a burner phone, of course. He tried to act innocent at first, but I didn't buy it. I told him I knew about his affair with Lisa, that I had proof, and that I was done playing games. That's when he cracked. He started stammering, trying to deny everything, but I kept pushing. Finally, he admitted it. Said he'd been with her for a few weeks, that she made him feel alive again, like she was some goddess or something. I could hear the guilt in his voice, but honestly, I didn't care. All I felt was cold rage that she'd betrayed me so completely. I told him I was coming to get my stuff and that I was done. I wanted her to know I was serious. I wanted her to see I wasn't going to be some pushover anymore. That night, I went back to the house. The atmosphere was thick with tension. She was waiting in the living room, biting her nails, trying to look innocent. As soon as I walked in, I told her I knew the whole story, about her affair, about Mark, all of it. Her face twisted into a mix of panic and defiance. She started crying again, trying to explain how it was just sex, how she was lonely, how she didn't mean to hurt me. But I was past caring. I told her I didn't want her apologies. I wanted her to pack her bags and leave. I wasn't going to let her stay and keep lying to my face. She begged me to listen, to forgive her, but I was done. I wanted her gone, out of my life forever. I felt numb but also victorious, like I'd finally taken control of my own life again, even if it hurt like hell. As she packed her things, I watched her, feeling a strange mixture of relief and devastation. I knew I'd never forget what she did, but I also knew I'd survive it. I realized that sometimes trust is a fragile thing, and once it's broken, rebuilding it isn't just hard, it's impossible. I've learned that the hard way. And I guess, in some twisted way, this was my wake-up call. If I ever had a shot at happiness again, I'd have to start by rebuilding myself from the ground up. That's what I'm doing now, learning to live with the pain, understanding that sometimes the biggest betrayal comes from the person you thought loved you the most. After she finally moved out, the house felt emptier than ever. It was quiet, almost deafeningly so. For days, I walked around in a fog, trying to piece myself back together. I'd kept all the evidence, the footage, the texts, the recordings, and I kept staring at them, wondering how I missed all the signs, how I let her lie to my face for so long. I felt stupid, betrayed, and mostly angry at myself for trusting her so blindly. But at some point, I realized I had to stop letting her define me by her betrayal. I'd been humiliated, yeah, but I was still standing. I told myself I deserved more than that kind of betrayal. So I started focusing on me, getting my head straight, fixing up the house, and figuring out what I really wanted from life now. I knew I'd never be the same, but I also knew I couldn't let her take everything away from me. Not my dignity, not my future. One day, I found myself going through old photos of us, and it was like watching someone else's life. We had good times, no doubt, vacations, birthdays, quiet weekends. But all of that felt distant now, like a story I'd read once, not my reality anymore. It's crazy how someone you loved can change everything in an instant. I was angry at her, but deep down I was mostly sad. Sad that I'd lost so much trust, so much faith in what we had. I spent the next few weeks trying to pick up the pieces. I started therapy, not to mend the relationship, because I knew that was over, but to help me deal with the aftermath. It wasn't easy. Every day was a roller coaster of emotions. There were moments of clarity where I felt strong, and moments where I just wanted to crawl into a hole and disappear. But I kept pushing. I didn't want to be that guy who got broken by a woman's lies. I wanted to come out of this better, stronger. I also made a conscious decision to block her out of my life entirely. No texts, no calls, no social media stalking. I needed space to heal, and that meant cutting the cord. Every time I thought about her, I reminded myself of what she did, how she lied, and how she betrayed everything we built. That helped me stay focused on moving forward. I started going to the gym again, picking up old hobbies I'd abandoned. Little things, but they made me feel alive again. One night I had a moment of clarity, realizing that I'd put a lot of my happiness on her, on us. And I'd let that happen because I loved her too much, maybe. But love isn't supposed to hurt this much. Love isn't supposed to make you feel like you're losing who you are. That's when I decided that I'd rebuild my life on my own terms, that I wouldn't let her betrayal define me anymore. I'd learn to trust again, but not blindly, and I'd be better for it. Looking back now, I have no illusions about what happened. It hurt like hell and it still stings. But it also taught me some hard lessons about trust, about worth, about standing up for myself. I realize sometimes people change, and not for the better. And the best thing you can do is pick yourself up when they do, learn from it, and keep moving forward. That's what I'm doing now. And honestly, I feel a little freer, a little stronger every day. That's the biggest lesson I've learned from all of this. Nobody should accept betrayal, no matter how much they loved someone. Because in the end, you've got to protect yourself first. Always. Now here I am, months later, still piecing things back together. The house has a new energy, one that I built myself on my terms. I won't lie, sometimes I still catch myself thinking about her, about what might have been, but those moments are getting fewer and farther between. What I do know is that I'm finally starting to feel like myself again. Not the guy who was blindsided by lies, but someone who's learned what his limits are, what he deserves, and how to stand up when it matters most. I've had to let go of the anger and hurt, though they still linger sometimes, so I can move forward. I've learned that betrayal cuts deep, but it also teaches you to value yourself more. I don't dwell on the past anymore. Instead, I focus on building a future I can be proud of, one where I trust myself more and rely less on others' promises. Looking back, I realize I was naive, maybe even a little stupid for trusting her so blindly. But I also see that it's part of loving someone expecting the best from them. The truth is, I might have been a little too comfortable, too safe in that relationship, and that's partly my fault. But betrayal isn't always about who you are, it's about who someone else chooses to be. And she chose to lie, to cheat, to betray everything we built. So I want anyone reading this to know, don't ever let yourself become someone's doormat. If you see signs of trouble, address them early. Trust is a fragile thing, and once broken, it's almost impossible to repair. But more than anything, don't stay in something that makes you feel small or unworthy, because you deserve better. You deserve honesty. Respect love that doesn't hurt. I've learned that the pain of betrayal eventually fades, but the lessons stay with you forever. It's not about revenge anymore, at least not the kind that makes you feel worse. It's about reclaiming your life, your dignity, and your peace. I won't pretend I'm completely healed, but I am better, stronger, more cautious maybe, but also more aware of what I want and what I won't accept. In the end, I realized I don't need someone to complete me. I just need to be true to myself, and that's what I'll keep doing. Living, learning, and occasionally looking back, not with bitterness, but with a quiet acceptance that sometimes love just isn't enough. And that's okay. Because in the end, the only love that truly matters is the one I give myself. That's the lesson I'll carry forward.